Hey everyone, Caleb with the Antique Book Collective, and I'm getting to you guys with a interesting little video. It's sort of like a caveat sort of video to one that I'm about to make, and this video is me just talking about how I just sold a book to Washington, D.C. So for me, Washington, D.C. has actually bought quite a few books for how small of an area it is, and I thought it was just really interesting. So I just wanted to talk though about this particular book that I just sold. So this book, it's a picture. I'll show you actually guys a couple pictures of it, but this book is called Just David. It's actually the most expensive book I've sold over the past couple of months just because of how business has been going lately. But it's interesting because my expensive books for my antique book business, my sales for those have just like completely plummeted since they started announcing all the stuff about the recession, the depression, whatever's going on right now. You know, like some people are saying greater depression, other people are saying it's the worst recession ever and it's going to be a long-lasting recession, which, spoiler alert, that's what a depression is. Duh. Language, you know, people keep changing definitions of stuff. It doesn't change what it means, but all these sorts of things, people are scared. People are scared out of their wits, a lot of them, because they're like, the economy's dead. If the economy's dead, then the world is over. We're all going to die. And because everyone's so scared and because everything, all the prices are going down, all these things, people stop buying collectibles. Collectibles are sort of like a luxury sort of thing that only the richest people buy or the most passionate people buy. And when you have a recession, both people normally stop buying stuff that they don't need. In fact, 99.9% of people stop buying what they don't need. That's one of the factors that makes recessions as bad as they are, or depressions as bad as they are, is people can only afford to buy the things that they really need. It's a really complicated, interesting, and really worth studying thing if we're going into things as bad as what people are saying, so it's worth studying. But for me, this is the most valuable book that I've sold over not too long ago, and yes, I've sold things worth more than this, but those are normally sets. I sell tons and tons and tons of sets of books. Those are probably my best sellers, especially right now. I've mentioned in other videos, guys, that I got into mass market paperbacks, and I also bought a boatload of hardcover books. I'll probably do a video on the hardcover books in the future, but I bought a boatload of hardcover books that I'm selling for basically the lowest rate that I can because I was getting ready for the recession or depression. Last year, I started buying up all the inventory I could for it because I knew how the market cycles go. I knew that collectibles would go down, so I was getting ready. I was pivoting into it, you know, because I watch out for these things. And honestly, guys, if you guys want to basically follow someone that comments on economic stuff and eBay stores, that's probably me. Like, a lot of people don't comment on that sort of stuff. A lot of people specialize in just eBay stuff. For me, my main focus, like in life, is economic stuff, and that's what most of my businesses focus on. That's how I succeed in a lot of these things. So that's like my main focus, and everything else sort of stems off of that. So for me, I'm more of an economist person than I am an eBay person. As you can probably tell, I'm probably not the best YouTube person either. I mean, I'm not the best person on camera. I'm not the best editor. I'm not the best at all these things, but I know economics. I know a couple other things. I know how to dig holes. I can do a couple things. I can screw in a nail too. I can screw in a nail. Yeah, get it? Huh? You hammer nails. That's the joke. But I can do a lot of stuff. But with all that said, though, I pivoted into this, and because I pivoted into this, I was able to make sure that my business did not just completely suffer. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about this book that I sold to DC. So this book is called Just David. I thought it was a really interesting book, and I'm going to be showing you guys some screenshots. So there's a screenshot of the book itself, me holding it. There's one of me. I just wanted to show you guys like how I wrap my books. So here's a video of, sorry, not a video. Here's a picture of just how I do it. I have the roll of butcher paper, and then I have the basically the box cutter in the book. I make sure the paper's just the right size for me to wrap it. Here's me after I wrapped it. I use tape to cover it, and then I put a little, I like the little stickers that I put on it. It says happy reading. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I bought a Dymo printer and a boatload of labels to do this. I bought the labels probably 5 years ago along with the printer, and I've gone through hundreds and hundreds of them, probably thousands of them. Well, actually, yeah, definitely thousands of them. Maybe tens of thousands of them at this point. I honestly don't know. I should keep track of that. But like, I've gone through so many of these, and I really enjoy it because it's a really cool addition to my business to have every single book say a little thing that says happy reading on it. You know, it's like, it's fun for me. Like, if I'm opening up a book, not only is it wrapped, but it has a little sticker that's like, enjoy the book. Like, it's a fun little addition that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people just throw something in a bag and say it's good. But for me, I liked having the extra touches. You know, the more times that you can show someone that you put in the extra care is the more amount of times that they'll be like, maybe I should leave a review for this guy, or maybe I'll buy another book from this guy, stuff like that. So that's something that I like to do personally. If you guys want a Dymo printer and the labels, that's in the description below. I have an affiliate link area, but that's just something. Here's a photo of just how I stuff the how I stuff the boxes with the books. I do paper on the bottom, and then I put the book in, and then I wrap the book like around with all the butcher paper to make sure that it doesn't move around. And then here's another photo. This is it with paper on top. I know it's pretty ugly, but that's how I do it. And with all that, it makes sure that the book doesn't get jostled around. It makes sure that if the book is dropped off of a very high height, the book's going to be fine. Like personally, when I actually was starting out this business, I was like, well, I got this box and I got this book that I'm about to throw away, so I'm just going to put them together. I wrapped it how I normally do it, and then I literally threw it out of my window and saw how it worked and opened it up, saw that it was fine. So I threw it a couple more times. I like really abused this box in the book just to see just how much damage I could do to the book just by basically mistreating it as much as some post office people do. I like not to hate on the post office, like you post office people, sometimes you guys do amazing work, but there's also some post office people that do terrible work, and a lot of people probably hate the government because of how terrible some post office workers are. But I just wanted to make sure that these books were as safe as I could do, and that was my big test to see how bad I could abuse these things. And when I wrapped the book like that, it really did the best. And for me, I also do the butcher paper. I try to do the wax ones. They have wax butcher paper and also just like craft paper. I try to do the wax butcher paper sometimes. I actually am moving away from that, but the wax one's nice because it gave it a little bit of moisture protection. But I found that that's not much of an issue after doing this business for a few years, which is really nice. The cardboard that I do, it's like it's like normal cardboard with the corrugated, I found that normally keeps water out well enough on its own because it's a lot of air gap to make sure that if it's dropped in a puddle, it won't damage everything. So that's something that's just really fun to keep in mind. Because for me, I like to make sure that my books arrive to the people exactly like my listing is, So that's just something that I really wanted to keep track of. But with that said, this book being sent to DC. So the next video that I'm going to do, which is going to relate to this video, is actually my best markets for selling books. But I just wanted to share that DC is actually one that I've had a whole lot of sales to. And for me, I also think it's funny. Like, just a total caveat, nothing to do with books at all. But for me, I think it's funny because when I talk about, oh, I went to Washington today. For me, I live in Oregon, so Washington, that's the state up north. Washington State is what a lot of people on the East Coast call it, but around where I am, a lot of us just call it Washington because it's Washington. And then Washington, D.C., we call it D.C. because Washington, D.C. A lot of people, though, on the East Coast, they call Washington, D.C., they call it Washington. And then they call Washington the state, Washington State. It's like, why? You guys are making things complicated. I just think that's something weird that I've always thought it's funny, and that a few of my other friends I've talked to are like, yeah, it's a little weird. I don't know. It's just something that I wanted to rant on. But with that said, though, it's interesting because all these different books that I've done, it's like, oh yeah, this one area I've sold a ton, this one area. And it's just fun, the different kinds of books that you sell and the types of books that you sell in all these different areas. So for me, Washington, D.C., I normally sell these higher end collectible books. There are a couple other markets that I also do that get the higher end books. So for example, the college towns in California, I sell a whole lot to those. So like we're talking like wherever Berkeley is, and like San Paul Obispo or whatever that is, and LA, all those sorts of areas that have either a lot of people, a lot of money, or the colleges. I normally sell a lot more valuable antique books to those places. For other examples, Florida, there's like basically just the big cities in Florida I'll sell a whole lot of money to. I've yet to sell some to the like really resort towns in Florida or anywhere else, so I think that's sort of interesting. But there are different markets that I find buy and sell a whole lot more of these very valuable books. Another one is Virginia, specifically the areas closer to DC around Virginia, and also New York City. I've had several sales to, well, not just New York City, but New York in general, and around New York City, that's another area that I've had quite a few good sales. So take that however you want. Like, you guys can be like, oh, this is useless information, or you can think outside the box and be like, okay, so if these are the places that buy more expensive antique books, then how do I reach those people? And for you, you might be thinking just on the eBay side of things, you're like, okay, there's nothing I can do with eBay to do that. Like, all I could do is just increase promoted listing stuff. That doesn't help. But if you think outside the box, you might think, okay, so Facebook lets you target just specific zip codes with advertisements. So if you're thinking outside of the box, you can be like, okay, I can advertise my expensive antique books, especially my first editions or my one-off books, to anyone in New York City or just downtown New York City. You know, you can focus on just where you want to advertise, and there's other places that let you advertise as well. And that's something that you guys can definitely play around with. For me, I haven't dabbled in that for my antique book business just yet, but it is something that you guys might want to play around with potentially if you have nothing to do and you just want to try advertising expensive books. Because as I said earlier in this video, with the economy going downhill very quick, you might want to get rid of your collectible inventory as soon as you can, because those values that were around like in 2021 or 2020, beginning of 2022, you know, those values that were this high, those are now this high. The housing market alone has gone down a ton. Gold has gone down too. Like, it hasn't gone down worldwide, believe it or not, because of the strong dollar. Gold prices have actually gone down, but the dollar's gone up, so gold's actually holding pretty well. In other markets around the world, gold's actually up, sometimes pretty substantially. So that's something that's sort of interesting to keep in mind. But just keep in mind that all the different things that you guys can do and should do for the economy going down, maybe it's time that you advertise a little bit more to get rid of those high-end antique books or high-end collector books or whatever other thing that you're selling on eBay. Maybe it's time to start selling off those things potentially a lot lower than you want right now, because there's a good chance, if the recession or depression is as bad as some people are saying, there's a good chance that it's going to go down even further, and cash in hand is a whole lot better than having a book that's not worth a whole lot. So like for me, for example, I'm just going to grab a random book. I've had this book in like 100 videos now, but let's say this book is worth $500. I could sell it right now for $300, or I can hang on to it for another 2 years for the bottom of the depression, and I might sell it for $5 because no one wants it, you know. Or I can hang on to it for another 20 years and it might be back up to 500, you know. It's interesting just how markets go, collectibles go, all these sorts of things. It's a very high-end thing that I'm actually going to do a couple of videos on in the future. I actually have like a bunch of research to do, and I've actually started doing research for all this, and I'm going to obviously do it a whole lot better than this video is. But there's a whole lot of things to do and keep in mind about how you should run your business depending on the market cycles going on. There's a lot of us that are just now getting into businesses, or this is our brand new side hustle, and we don't know what's coming down the pike. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's the best thing to sell, all these sorts of things. So with all that said, though, guys, I am personally running big sales on all my high-end collectible items. I've pivoted into lower-end books that I can make good money on if I buy them good, but these books are a whole lot lower than what I normally try to buy and sell books for. But the reason why I'm pivoting into this is just to make sure that I can keep my income up and keep my sales up for my eBay store. So that's just some of the stuff that I'm doing. Of course, this isn't necessarily financial advice. I'm not your financial advisor, but it's just what I am doing and what I think a lot of people should do just to get ready for what's coming. So with all that said and done, though, guys, I hope that helped. I hope that made sense to a lot of you guys. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to check out another one of my videos, and I'll see you guys in the next video.